Hello, I'm Pastor Carl Johnston with the United Church of Hayworth. This is our midweek devotion. We have been looking at, for this month in February, the idea of searching the scriptures. In the first week, we talked about how to be a Bible detective, asking who, what, when, where, why, how, and just asking a lot of questions to the passage. The next week, we talked about looking at the other witnesses. So we compared Matthew and Luke to the Mark passage. Last week was Ash Wednesday, and we had our Ash Wednesday healing service. So today, we come to the conclusion of our series on searching the scriptures. And our passage has been all month, Mark 1, verses 1, Mark 1, chapter 1, 29 through 31. As soon as they left the synagogue, they went with James and John to the house of Simon and Andrew. Simon's mother-in-law was in bed with a fever, and they told Jesus about her. So he went to her, took her by the hand, helped her up. The fever left her, and she began to wait on them. So we've asked the who, what, when, where, why, how questions. We've looked at what Matthew and Luke said. And now today, we want to really look at what's the practical application of this passage, this short passage, to our lives. So number one, even Jesus had friends. Jesus started his ministry and called people so that he would not be alone. Peter, Andrew, James, and John were the first four apostles, disciples that he had. And the idea that Jesus didn't want to do this ministry on his own is significant. During COVID and even before COVID, loneliness has been a real problem for a lot of people. We think about those in nursing homes. We think about those who are living by themselves. Recently, I heard about the college students who, after they graduate, they've been with all their college friends, they've been in the same classes, and they graduate, and that's wonderful. But then they have to start a job, and they're in a new town where they don't know anybody, and there's significant loneliness among those who just recently graduated from college until they find friends and start to do that. This is one of the things that the church can be helpful with. The church is the only organization that I'm aware of that you can have an intergenerational group. It is possible in most churches to know someone who's under 10, under 20, under 30, under 40, under 50, under 60, under 70, under 80, under 90, and in some churches, even under 100. It is the only intergenerational group that I really know of where you can have friends in every generation. So when we think about loneliness and doing ministry and living life together and doing life, the church is a real resource. And Jesus had this group of men around him so that he wasn't alone in doing the ministry. I think that's one of the applications of that passage. The second thing I see is when you're a friend of Jesus, it's okay to ask for help. Now, Peter, Andrew, James, and John had not known Jesus long at this point. They had just been called to ministry. But they knew enough that when they had a problem, when there was a situation that they didn't know what to do with, they could talk to Jesus about it. Now, in the church, we would refer to this as intercessory prayer. And even today, people will say to others, "Would you pray for me? I'm going to have surgery. Would you pray for me? A loved one has died. Would you keep me in your prayers because of my grief and my loss?" This is something that when we're friends of Jesus, we can ask Jesus for his help. Now, I wish I could tell you that Jesus is always going to say yes. That's not the way it works. Sometimes the answer is yes. Sometimes the answer is no. Sometimes the answer is wait, and sometimes the answer is, I've got something way better planned than you were even thinking about, pal. So it's always our option, always our privilege to say to Jesus, would you help with this? In this case, Jesus did say yes. He went in, reached down, and helped her and healed her. And then the third thing I would get out of this passage that would apply to our lives is that when Jesus helps us, when we have a response from Jesus, our response, at least Peter's mother-in-law's response, and so many others in the Bible, was gratitude. How can I ever say thank you? And so the mother-in-law, Peter's mother-in-law, waits on them. She serves them out of gratitude. Perhaps when you give to church, it's out of gratitude. When you say, yes, Pastor, I'll serve on that committee, it's out of gratitude. Maybe it's, I have a talent, I have ability. God gave me a skill to help in that area. There are so many ways in which we can say, out of the kindness of our hearts, out of the gratitude of our hearts, yes to God. So, those are the three things that I see in this passage, and I hope that it helps us grow closer to Him. And that's something for you to think about.